Commander Zixkala's three eyes focused on the blue-green world spinning slowly beneath them, and her throat sac contracted with what humans might recognize as a gulp. After 500,000 years of exile, the Veltar had finally returned to reclaim their ancient colony. Scanning for life signs, reported Navigator Thran, his spindled fingers dancing across crystalline controls. "Commander, you need to see this." The holographic display flickered to life, showing impossible numbers. Where their records indicated a primitive population of perhaps 10 million proto-sentients, the scanners now detected over 8 billion advanced life forms. "That cannot be accurate," Zixkala whispered, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones of her species' natural communication. "Run the scan again." The numbers remained the same. 8 billion. Advanced technology signatures, artificial satellites, energy readings that made her secondary heart skip a beat. Science Officer Krill floated closer, his gelatinous form rippling with concern. "Commander, there's more. They've spread beyond this world. Our sensors detect their presence on the fourth planet, permanent installations on their moon, and structures throughout their solar system." Zixkala felt her primary limbs tremble. When the Veltar had left Earth 500,000 years ago, they had abandoned it because the indigenous species, those curious bipedal mammals, had shown potential but were still millennia away from true intelligence. The Veltar Empire had been expanding rapidly then, and Earth was deemed too primitive to warrant the resources needed for proper colonization. Now, staring at the data streams flowing across her command chamber, Zixkala realized they had made a catastrophic miscalculation. "Activate the historical archives," she commanded. "Show me everything we recorded about the indigenous species during our previous occupation." The chamber filled with ancient holographic records, images of early humans, barely past their hunter-gatherer stage, flickered in the stale ship's air. The Veltar scientists had been fascinated by human adaptability, but had concluded that their aggressive tendencies and short lifespans would prevent any significant evolutionary leap. "According to our projections," Krill said, his voice barely above a whisper, "they shouldn't have achieved spaceflight for another 50,000 years. And yet..." Thran manipulated the display showing Earth's current electromagnetic signature. "They're broadcasting across multiple spectrums. Their energy output suggests controlled nuclear reactions. Commander, they've achieved in 500,000 years what took us nearly 2 million. The silence in the command chamber was broken only by the soft humming of the ship's bio-neural networks. Zixkala had been born into the Veltar warrior caste, trained to conquer and subdue primitive worlds. But this changed everything. "Sir," Communications Officer Viel reported, his bioluminescent patches flashing urgent orange, "We're detecting organized military responses across the planet's surface. They've noticed us." On the display, tiny craft were launching from the planet below, sleek metal ships that moved with surprising speed and coordination. More concerning were the energy buildups at multiple points across Earth's surface. Whatever weapons the humans had developed, they were powering them up. "Analysis of their military capability?" Zixkala asked, though she dreaded the answer. Krill's form darkened to a deep purple, the Veltar equivalent of breaking into a cold sweat. "Commander, their weapons technology, it's based on the same fundamental principles as ours. They've discovered antimatter manipulation, particle acceleration, and..." He paused, his voice becoming impossibly small. "They've weaponized their sun's fusion process. Nuclear weapons. The humans had nuclear weapons. Zixkala's species had developed such weapons only after 3 million years of evolution and technological advancement. The humans had done it in what was to the Veltar the blink of an eye. "Sir?" Vale's voice cracked. "We're receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it through." The voice that filled the command chamber was firm, controlled, and speaking in one of the primitive languages the Veltar had catalogued centuries ago, though it had evolved considerably. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Command. You are in violation of Earth's sovereign space. Identify yourself immediately, or we will consider your presence an act of aggression." Zixkala felt her respiratory sacs seize. The humans weren't just technologically advanced, They were organized, united, ready for war. "Commander," Thran whispered, "our stealth systems are failing. Whatever scanning technology they're using, it's penetrating our defenses." Another transmission crackled through the chamber, this one from multiple sources across Earth's surface. "Unidentified vessel, you now have 60 seconds to respond before defensive measures are initiated. This is your final warning." 60 seconds. Zixkala looked at her crew, seeing her own terror reflected in their alien features. The Veltar had returned to reclaim what they considered their property, but the property had grown teeth. Sharp, nuclear-powered teeth. "Sir," Krill reported, his voice barely controlled, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups across their planet. If those are weapons, the yield calculations suggest they could crack our hull." 50 seconds. Zixkala made a decision that would have been unthinkable when she'd left Veltar space. She activated the communication array with a trembling appendage. "This is Commander Zixkala of the Veltar Reclamation Fleet," she began, her voice artificially steadied by her training. We wish to establish peaceful contact." She had intended to announce their return as conquerors. Instead, she was practically begging. Chapter 2. First contact. Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusted her translation matrix for the 15th time in 10 minutes, her hands shaking slightly as she worked. As Earth's leading xenolinguist, she had dreamed of this moment her entire career. First contact with an alien species. She had just never imagined it would happen while humanity was essentially holding a gun to the alien's head. "The linguistic patterns are fascinating," she murmured to Admiral Chen, who stood rigid beside her in the command center deep beneath Geneva. "Their communication includes harmonic undertones that suggest emotional states, and the syntax implies a highly evolved social structure." "Dr. Vasquez," Admiral Chen said without taking her eyes off the massive display showing the alien vessel, "I need to know if they're lying, not analyze their grammar." Elena nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. Above them, the alien ship hung like a dark moon, its surface seeming to shift and ripple in ways that hurt to look at directly. Every military installation on Earth was trained on it, ready to turn the vessel into cosmic debris at a word from Admiral Chen. "Commander Zixkala," Elena spoke into the communication array, her voice being translated and transmitted to the ship above. "We appreciate your desire for peaceful contact. However, you must understand our caution. Our historical records contain no evidence of your previous presence on Earth." There was a long pause before the alien commander responded. And when she did, Elena caught something in the harmonic undertones that made her stomach drop. "Dr. Vasquez, your species was significantly less advanced during our previous occupation. We maintained research stations on your world for approximately 3,000 of your years, studying your early development." Occupation. The word hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Admiral Chen's jaw tightened. "Are you saying you colonized Earth when humanity was in its infancy?" "Not colonized," came the careful reply. "We established research facilities. Your species was cataloged as showing potential for future development, but we estimated it would require tens of thousands of additional years for you to achieve true intelligence." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She glanced at the xenobiology team who were frantically analyzing the energy signatures from the alien ship. Dr. James Park, the team leader, caught her eye and shook his head grimly. Their technology was beyond current human understanding. "And now you've returned," Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying the weight of 8 billion lives. "Why?" Another pause. Elena noticed that the harmonic undertones in the alien commander's voice were becoming increasingly strained. "We came to reclaim what we considered our territory. However, we now realize that our initial assessments were inadequate." The euphemism didn't fool anyone in the command center. Elena saw several military officers exchange glances that spoke volumes. The aliens had come back expecting to find primitive humans they could easily displace. Instead, they'd found a species that had developed nuclear weapons and space travel. "Commander Zixkala," Elena said, choosing her words carefully, "we need to understand your intentions. Are you here as conquerors or as visitors?" The delay was longer this time, and when the response came, Elena detected something new in the harmonic patterns, something that sounded remarkably like fear. Dr. Vasquez, we came with certain expectations. Those expectations have proven to be entirely incorrect. We are reassessing our position. Elena looked at Admiral Chen, whose expression had grown even more grim. If the aliens were frightening themselves with humanity's development, what did that say about the human species? Sir, Dr. Park reported quietly. We're getting more detailed scans of their vessel. The technology is incredibly advanced, but here's the thing. Their ship appears to be designed for scientific research and colonization of primitive worlds. These aren't warships. Admiral Chen raised an eyebrow. Are you saying they're not equipped for military action? I'm saying they're equipped to handle Stone Age civilizations, not a species with thermonuclear weapons and orbital defense platforms. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. The aliens had returned expecting to find humans barely beyond cave paintings. Instead, they'd found a species that had turned atomic theory into weapons of mass destruction and had spread across their solar system. Commander, Elena spoke into the communication array. We would like to propose a meeting. A small delegation from each of our species, in neutral space. We believe there may be much we can learn from each other. She was lying, of course. What she really wanted was to get close enough to these aliens to understand exactly what humanity was dealing with. If they had been studying humanity for thousands of years in the past, they might know things about human development that humans themselves didn't know. Dr. Vasquez, came the reply, and Elena was becoming increasingly skilled. At reading the harmonic patterns, we would be honored to meet with your representatives. The alien commander was as desperate for this meeting as Elena was, but for entirely different reasons. The humans wanted intelligence about the aliens. The aliens, Elena was beginning to suspect, wanted to figure out how dangerous humanity had become. Excellent, Admiral Chen interjected. We'll meet at the International Space Station in 72 hours. Both delegations will be limited to 3 individuals, and weapons will not be permitted. Agreed, came the immediate response. The speed, of which suggested the aliens were eager to avoid any possibility of conflict. As the communication ended, Elena found herself staring at the tactical display showing Earth's defensive positions. Every continent was prepared for war, every military installation ready to defend humanity against an alien invasion. But as she thought about the fear she detected in the alien commander's voice, Elena began to wonder if the real question wasn't whether humanity could defend itself against the aliens. The real question might be whether the aliens needed to defend themselves against humanity. Chapter 3. The Horror of Realization. The meeting chamber aboard the International Space Station had been hastily retrofitted to accommodate alien physiology, though nobody was quite sure what to expect. Dr. Elena Vasquez floated in the zero-gravity environment alongside Admiral Chen and Dr. James Park, watching as the alien shuttle approached through the observation port. The craft that docked with the ISS was beautiful in its organic strangeness, a flowing, almost living-looking vessel that seemed to pulse with bioluminescent patterns. Elena found herself holding her breath as the airlock cycled. When the aliens emerged, Elena's first thought was how utterly foreign they were, and her second was how terrified they looked. Commander Zixkala was tall and willowy, with 3 eyes, arranged in a triangle on her elongated head and skin, that shifted between deep purple and pale lavender, based on what Elena was beginning to recognize as emotional states. Science Officer Krill was even more alien, a gelatinous, semi-transparent being whose thoughts seemed to be visible as colored patterns flowing beneath his surface. The third alien, introduced as cultural analyst Finn, was the most humanoid of the group, though his 4 arms and chitinous exterior made it clear he was no cousin to humanity. We are honored by this meeting, Commander Zixkala said. Her harmonics, translated through the advanced systems Dr. Vasquez had developed. But Elena could hear the underlying tones that the translation couldn't capture: anxiety, confusion, and something approaching terror. As are we, Admiral Chen replied diplomatically. "We have many questions about your previous presence on Earth." Elena noticed that all three aliens seemed to flinch at the word Earth, and their body language spoke of beings who were deeply uncomfortable with the situation they'd found themselves in. "Perhaps," Elena interjected gently, "we could begin by understanding each other's perspectives. Commander, when you left Earth 500,000 years ago, what did you expect to find when you returned?" Sixkala's skin shifted to a darker shade of purple. "We expected to find your species still in the early stages of tool use, perhaps basic agriculture. Our projections suggested you would require another 50,000 years to develop written language." Dr. Park leaned forward. "And instead you found us in space with nuclear weapons and global communication networks." "Yes," whispered Science Officer Krill, his gelatinous form rippling with what Elena was learning to recognize as distress. "In the time since we left, you have achieved technological advancement at a rate that defies every model we have for species development." Elena felt a chill run through her. "What kind of rate are we talking about?" Cultural analyst Finn spoke for the first time, his forearms gesturing in what seemed to be agitation. "Dr. Vasquez, most species require between 1 and 2 million years to progress from primitive tool use to spaceflight. You have done it in less than 100,000 years. Your rate of advancement is—" He paused, searching for words. "Unprecedented. Is that unusual?" Admiral Chen asked, though Elena suspected she already knew the answer. "Unusual?" Zixkala's harmonics climbed to what Elena was beginning to understand was something like hysteria. "Admiral Chen, in our exploration of this galaxy, we have encountered 847 sentient species. The fastest previous development we recorded was 800,000 years from primitive intelligence to spacefaring civilization. You have done it in 1/10 of that time." The human delegation exchanged glances. Elena wasn't sure if she should feel proud or terrified. "Moreover," Krill continued, his form now a deep, roiling black, "your development pattern is entirely wrong. Most species develop philosophy first, then science, then technology. You appear to have developed technology and science first, with philosophy struggling to keep pace." Elena found herself thinking about human history, the rapid progression from the discovery of fire to nuclear weapons, the way technological advancement had outpaced wisdom, the constant struggle between human capability and human judgment. "What does that mean for us?" Dr. Park asked quietly. The three aliens looked at each other in what was clearly a moment of silent communication before Zixkala answered. "Dr. Park, most spacefaring species develop under what we call the gradual enlightenment model. They become wise before they become powerful. They develop ethical frameworks before they develop weapons of mass destruction. They learn cooperation before they learn to split atoms. And humanity hasn't followed that pattern," Elena said, though it wasn't really a question. "Humanity," cultural analyst Finn said, his chitinous exterior clicking with what Elena was learning to recognize as agitation, "has developed the capability to destroy worlds before developing the wisdom to prevent such destruction." The silence that followed was profound and terrible. Admiral Chen finally spoke, her voice carefully controlled. "Are you saying that humanity is dangerous?" "Admiral," Zixkala said, her skin now cycling through rapid color changes that Elena suspected indicated extreme distress. "When we left Earth, your species was notable for its creativity, its adaptability, and its aggressive tendencies. We thought the aggression would limit your development. Instead it accelerated it," Elena finished. "Your species," Krill said, his form now completely black, "has weaponized everything. You turned splitting atoms into bombs. You turned chemistry into chemical weapons. You turned biology into biological weapons. You turned your own planet's weather into a weapon through environmental manipulation." Elena felt sick. When viewed through the lens of these ancient, wise aliens, humanity looked like a species of mad scientist. "But surely," Dr. Park said desperately, "other species have gone through similar phases." "No," Finn said simply. Other species develop past the need for such weapons before they develop the capability to create them. Your species appears to be unique in developing ultimate weapons while retaining the psychology that makes you willing to use them. Elena looked at her colleagues and saw her own horror reflected in their faces. What are you saying about us? Commander Zixkala floated closer, her three eyes focusing on Elena with an intensity that was almost hypnotic. Dr. Vasquez, in our 500,000 years of absence, your species has not only achieved impossible technological advancement, you have retained every destructive impulse that should have been evolved away millennia ago. You are the only species we have encountered that develops stellar-level technology while remaining fundamentally predatory. The word hung in the zero-gravity chamber like a death sentence. You're afraid of us, Admiral Chen said, her voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Chen, Zixkala replied, her harmonics now carrying frequencies that the translator couldn't even process. We are not just afraid of you. We are terrified that we may have inadvertently helped create the galaxy's first truly dangerous species. Chapter 4. The Truth About Humanity. Elena Vasquez stared at the alien delegation, her mind racing to process the implications of what she was hearing. The zero-gravity chamber aboard the ISS suddenly felt claustrophobic, despite its generous size. What do you mean, helped create? She asked, though part of her already suspected the answer would change everything. Humanity thought it knew about itself. Commander Zixkala's skin cycled through deep purples and blacks as she exchanged what Elena was beginning to recognize as urgent communications with her companions through rapid harmonic bursts that the translation system couldn't follow. Dr. Vasquez, Zixkala finally said, there are things about your species' development that we hoped never to have to explain. Admiral Chen leaned forward, her military bearing evident even in zero gravity. Commander, if you have information about humanity's development, we need to know it. All of it. Science Officer Krill's gelatinous form rippled with patterns that Elena was learning to read as extreme anxiety. Admiral, what we are about to tell you may fundamentally alter your species' understanding of itself. Tell us anyway, Dr. Park said grimly. Cultural analyst Finn's forearms gestured in what Elena suspected was the alien equivalent of wringing hands. When we first arrived on your world 500,000 years ago, your species was unremarkable except for one trait, unprecedented adaptability. However, this adaptability came with a cost. Elena felt her heart rate spike. What kind of cost? Your neurological development was chaotic, Zixkala explained. Most species develop consciousness gradually, with natural regulatory mechanisms that prevent destructive impulses from overwhelming rational thought. Your species developed consciousness rapidly, without these regulatory mechanisms. Are you saying humans are mentally unstable? Admiral Chen asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Not unstable, Krill corrected quickly. Unregulated. Your species has the capacity for both profound creativity and profound destruction, with fewer natural inhibitions than any other sentient race we've encountered. Elena's scientific mind was already making connections that terrified her. The aggression, the creativity, the rapid technological development, they're all connected, aren't they? Yes, Finn said simply. Your species' greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. The same neurological patterns that make you incredibly adaptive and creative also make you incredibly dangerous. Admiral Chen's expression was stone cold. And you mentioned that you helped create this. How? The silence from the alien delegation was deafening. Finally, Commander Zixkala spoke, her harmonics so distressed that the translation system was struggling to process them. During our research period on your world, we conducted limited genetic studies. We were fascinated by your species' adaptability and wanted to understand its mechanism. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. You experimented on us. Limited studies, Krill said quickly. We thought we were simply documenting natural processes. What did you do? Dr. Park asked, though his voice suggested he already dreaded the answer. Finn's chitinous exterior was clicking rapidly now. We isolated the genetic sequences responsible for your adaptability and we may have inadvertently enhanced them. The chamber fell silent, except for the soft hum of life support systems. Enhanced them how? Elena whispered. We were trying to understand how your neural plasticity worked, Zixkala explained. We introduced targeted genetic modifications to a small population, intending to study the results. We thought we were simply amplifying existing traits. Admiral Chen's voice was deadly calm. How many humans were modified? Approximately 10,000 individuals across multiple continents, Krill admitted. But Dr. Chen, we need you to understand, we thought we were creating a more adaptable, more intelligent subspecies. We never imagined that you were creating monsters, Elena finished. Not monsters, Finn protested, but we may have removed some of the natural limitations that prevent most species from developing too quickly. Elena's mind was reeling. The enhanced humans? Their modifications would have spread through the gene pool over hundreds of thousands of years. Yes, Zixkala confirmed. By now, every human alive carries some trace of our modifications. Dr. Park was staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. You're saying that humanity's rapid development, our technological advancement, our capacity for both creation and destruction, it's all because you altered our genetics 500,000 years ago? We fear that may be the case, Krill said, his form now completely black with distress. Admiral Chen stood up as much as zero gravity would allow, her face a mask of controlled fury. Do you realize what you've done? You created an entire species of enhanced beings and then abandoned us to develop without guidance or oversight. We thought you would develop normally, Zixkala said desperately. Every model suggested that genetic enhancement would simply accelerate normal development patterns. We never imagined you would retain destructive impulses while gaining technological capability. Elena felt sick. We're not a natural species. We're an experiment that got out of hand. Dr. Vasquez, Finn said urgently, you are still fundamentally human. Our modifications were minimal. We simply removed some regulatory mechanisms that were limiting your adaptability. The same regulatory mechanisms, Elena realized with horror, that prevent other species from becoming dangerous. Yes, all 3 aliens said simultaneously. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just an unusually aggressive species. They were an accidentally enhanced species that had developed beyond their natural limitations. Every war, every weapon, every destructive impulse that had driven human history was the result of alien genetic tampering. What do we do now? Admiral Chen asked. How do we fix this? The alien delegation exchanged rapid harmonic communications before Zixkala answered. Admiral, we don't know if it can be fixed. The modifications have been integrated into your species for thousands of generations. Attempting to reverse them could destroy what makes humanity unique. And leaving them in place? Dr. Park asked. Means that humanity will continue to develop at an unprecedented rate, Krill said quietly, with all the dangers that implies. Elena looked at her colleagues, seeing her own horror reflected in their faces. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the truth. They weren't alone, but they might be something far worse. They might be the most dangerous species in the galaxy, created by accident and abandoned to their own devices, and now their creators had returned to find their experiment had grown beyond their worst nightmares. Epilogue. The New Understanding. 3 months after first contact, Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed orbital research platform, watching Earth slowly rotate below. The planet looked deceptively peaceful from this distance, a blue-green marble spinning in the void, giving no hint of the 8 billion enhanced predators living on its surface. The genetic analysis is complete, Dr. Park said, joining her at the observation window. His voice carried a weight that hadn't been there before the revelation. Every human tested shows the modifications the Veltar described. The enhanced neural plasticity, the reduced regulatory mechanisms, the accelerated development patterns, it's all there in our DNA. Elena nodded, unsurprised. In the weeks following the meeting aboard the ISS, Human scientists had worked frantically to understand their own nature. The results had been uniformly disturbing. Any progress on understanding the long-term implications? She asked. Dr. Park's laugh was bitter. Elena, we're a species of accidental super soldiers with the technology to crack planets and the psychology of apex predators. The long-term implications are that we're either going to evolve past our destructive impulses very quickly, or we're going to become the galaxy's worst nightmare. Through the observation window, Elena could see the massive Veltar research vessel maintaining its position near Earth's moon. For 3 months, the aliens had remained in the solar system, studying humanity with the desperate intensity of scientists trying to understand a dangerous organism they'd accidentally created. Admiral Chen's briefing is in 10 minutes, Doctor, Park reminded her. Are you ready for this? Elena wasn't sure anyone could be ready for what they were about to discuss. The Joint Human Veltar Research Committee had been working around the clock to understand not just what humanity was, but what it might become. The briefing room was a study in contrasts, humans floating in zero gravity alongside Veltar scientists, whose bioluminescent patterns had remained consistently dark since their arrival. Commander Zixkala looked like she hadn't slept in weeks, if Veltar even slept. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests, Admiral Chen began, we've reached several conclusions about humanity's current status and future development. None of them are comforting. She activated the holographic display, showing genetic analysis, data that had taken teams of scientists months to compile. First, the modifications made by the Veltar have indeed propagated throughout the entire human species. Every human alive carries enhanced neural plasticity and reduced regulatory mechanisms. We are, in essence, an entire species of enhanced individuals. Cultural analyst Finn's forearms twitched with what Elena now recognized as distress. Admiral, we must emphasize again that our modifications were intended to be beneficial. And they were, Elena interjected. The same modifications that make us potentially dangerous also make us capable of unprecedented creativity, adaptability, and problem-solving. We've achieved in 500,000 years what most species require millions of years to accomplish. Which brings us to our second conclusion, Admiral Chen continued. Humanity's development rate is not slowing down. If anything, our technological advancement is accelerating. The display showed projection charts that made Elena's breath catch. If the trends continued, humanity would achieve technologies that the Veltar considered impossibly advanced within the next 1,000 years. And our psychological development? Asked Dr. Park. Science Officer Krill's gelatinous form rippled with dark patterns. This is where our analysis becomes most disturbing. Most species develop emotional regulation and cooperative instincts before achieving dangerous technologies. Humanity appears to be developing these traits in parallel with technological advancement, creating a constant race between wisdom and capability. Elena felt a chill. Are you saying we might develop planet-killing weapons before we develop the wisdom not to use them? Dr. Vasquez, Commander Zixkala said, her harmonics heavy with implications. You already have planet-killing weapons. The question is whether you'll develop the wisdom not to use them before you develop even more dangerous technologies. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Chen finally spoke. What are our options? Limited, Finn admitted. We could attempt genetic therapy to restore regulatory mechanisms, but this would likely eliminate humanity's enhanced capabilities entirely. You would become a normal species, but you would lose what makes you unique. Or, Elena asked, or humanity continues its current development path and becomes either the most remarkable species in the galaxy or its greatest threat, Zixkala said quietly. Elena looked around the room at the faces of both species, humans grappling with the knowledge that they were accidental weapons, and Veltar struggling with the guilt of having created something they couldn't control. There is a third option, Elena said slowly, an idea forming as she spoke. Partnership. The Veltar have wisdom we lack. We have capabilities they find remarkable. Perhaps together we can guide humanity's development in positive directions. Though Alien delegation exchanged rapid harmonic communications before Zixkala responded. Dr. Vasquez, that would require unprecedented cooperation between our species. The Veltar would essentially be helping to direct the development of beings who could eventually surpass us entirely. And humanity would be accepting guidance from the species that created our nature in the first place, Admiral Chen added. It won't be an easy sell to either population. Elena looked out at Earth, spinning peacefully in the void, its surface hiding the most accidentally dangerous species in known space. The alternative, she said quietly, is to leave humanity to develop alone, with all the risks that implies, or to try to remove what makes us human in the first place. The silence stretched for long minutes before Commander Zixkala spoke. Dr. Vasquez, Admiral Chen, if humanity is willing to accept guidance, not control, but guidance, the Veltar are willing to help direct your development toward positive outcomes. Elena felt something that might have been hope stirring in her chest. A partnership between species, Veltar wisdom and human capability working together. It's never been attempted before, Krill warned. The risks are enormous. So are the stakes, Admiral Chen pointed out. If we get this wrong, the entire galaxy might pay the price. Elena looked around the room one more time, seeing representatives of two species grappling with an impossible situation. Humanity, the accidentally enhanced, dangerously capable children of an alien experiment. The Veltar, ancient wise beings confronting the consequences of their scientific curiosity. Then we'd better get it right, she said simply, as the meeting concluded and both species began planning for an unprecedented partnership. Elena returned to the observation deck. Earth continued its ancient rotation, unchanged by the knowledge that its inhabitants were no longer quite human in the way they'd always believed. But perhaps, with wisdom guiding capability and cooperation tempering competition, humanity might yet become something worthy of their enhanced nature. The alternative, a galaxy dominated by accidentally dangerous apex predators with stellar-level technology, was too terrible to contemplate. Elena pressed her palm against the cool observation window and made a silent promise to the blue-green world below. Humanity would learn to be worthy of the power they'd been accidentally given. They had to. The galaxy depended on it. In the depths of space, other civilizations were beginning to notice unusual energy signatures emanating from a small system in the galactic arm. Ancient monitoring stations that had been silent for millennia suddenly activated, their automated systems registering a species development rate that defied every known model. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity was not alone in the universe. But more importantly, the universe was about to discover humanity, and that discovery would change everything. The end.